A chill ran down Okoye's spine. He had heard stories of ancient spirits, the powerful entities that once roamed the earth, but they were long believed to be legends, forgotten myths passed down through the generations. The thought that they were real, that they could still pose a threat, was both terrifying and surreal. "What do they want?" Okoye asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The keeper's face remained obscured, but her presence seemed to grow darker, more intense. "They want to reclaim what was once theirs," she said. "The balance of the world has been disrupted, and they intend to restore it at any cost." Okoye clenched his fists, frustration building within him. "How do I stop them? How do I protect the village?" The keeper's laugh was soft, almost sorrowful. "You cannot stop them, Okoye, not with force, not with weapons. The darkness that threatens you is not something that can be destroyed by human hands. It is part of the very fabric of existence. To fight it, you must understand it." Okoye's mind raced. The battle they had won, the curse that had nearly destroyed the village, it was only the beginning. The ancient spirits had been sealed away for a reason, and their return now threatened to undo everything. "Then what must I do?" Okoye demanded. "What is the way forward?" The keeper's form flickered, her figure dissolving into the shadows like smoke in the wind. "Seek the wisdom of the elders," she said, her voice fading. "Only they can help you understand how to face what is coming. The balance must be restored, but the cost will be greater than anything you have ever known." With that, the figure was gone, leaving Okoye alone in the cold night. The wind carried her final words, and he stood there, shaken by the enormity of what was to come. The ancient spirits were returning, and Okoye could not help but wonder, would his village survive the storm that was now gathering on the horizon? The following day, Okoye sought out the elders, his mind racing with the warnings of the keeper. The figure's cryptic message was still fresh in his mind, and he knew that he had no time to waste. If the ancient spirits were truly returning, the village would need all the help it could get. He found the elders gathered in their usual meeting place, near the edge of the village, beneath the sacred baobab tree. Chief Okoye, Elder Amina, and the others were deep in conversation, their faces lined with worry. When Okoye approached, they fell silent, sensing the urgency in his presence. "You have returned early," Chief Okoye observed, his voice carrying the weight of years of experience. "What troubles you, Okoye?" Okoye took a deep breath and recounted the encounter with the keeper. He told them everything: the whispers, the warning of the ancient spirits, and the cryptic advice to seek the wisdom of the elders. As he spoke, he watched the faces of the elders harden with recognition. It was clear that they understood the gravity of the situation. "The keeper has spoken the truth," Elder Amina said solemnly. "The spirits of old, the ones who were sealed away, are not mere stories, they are real, and their return is an omen that the balance of the world is once again at risk." "But what can we do?" Okoye asked. The keeper said that the darkness cannot be fought with force. Chief Okoye closed his eyes, his face etched with years of wisdom. "The balance must be restored, but the path forward will not be easy. To confront the ancient spirits, we must seek the guidance of the ancestors themselves. They are the only ones who can show us the way." Okoye felt a flicker of hope. "And how do we do that?" Elder Amina's eyes gleamed with determination. "There is an ancient ritual," she said softly. "A ritual that can open the door to the spirit world, allowing us to commune with the ancestors directly. But it is not without danger. Many have tried, and few have returned." Okoye nodded. He knew what he had to do. If there was a chance, any chance, to save the village, he would take it. "Prepare the ritual," Okoye said, his voice resolute. "I will do whatever it takes." The elders exchanged looks of concern, but nodded in agreement. They knew that Okoye was the village's last hope, and they would not stand in his way. As the sun began to set, the village prepared for the ancient ritual. The air was thick with anticipation, and Okoye could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had no choice but to step into the unknown, for the sake of the village, and for the sake of those he loved. As night fell over the village, a sense of anticipation hung in the air, thick with both fear and hope. The elders had gathered around a sacred circle, and the villagers had been asked to remain at a respectful distance. The ritual that was about to take place was one of immense power, one that required the utmost reverence and care. Okoye stood at the center of the circle, his heart pounding in his chest. The weight of his responsibility pressed down on him. The ancestors, the ancient spirits who had protected the land for centuries, were their last hope. Elder Amina, her face drawn and pale, stood beside him, guiding him through the necessary preparations. The sacred herbs, the offerings, the chants, all were essential for the ritual to succeed. In the distance, the sound of drums began to echo, steady and rhythmic, their deep beats resonating with the pulse of the earth itself. Okoye took a deep breath and knelt beside the ceremonial fire, which flickered with an otherworldly light. The flames seemed to dance and shimmer, casting strange shadows on the ground. He could feel the power of the earth beneath him, the very spirit of the land calling out, urging him to proceed. "This ritual is one of great risk," Elder Amina whispered, her voice low. "The ancestors may grant us their guidance, but they may also demand a price. Are you ready to face what comes?" Okoye nodded, his resolve hardening. "I am ready. The village's survival depends on it." The elder nodded solemnly and stepped back, joining the other elders who were positioned around the circle. As the chants began, the air seemed to vibrate with energy, thick with the presence of the unseen world. Okoye could feel the tension building, like the air before a storm, as the connection between the physical world and the spirit world grew stronger. The flames in the fire flared higher, and the wind picked up, swirling around the circle. Okoye's eyes closed as he focused on the rhythm of the chants, feeling the energy of the ritual flow through him. He reached out with his mind, attempting to connect with the spirits, to hear their voices. The world around him seemed to blur and fade, and for a moment he felt as though he was standing on the edge of two worlds. A voice, ancient and powerful, echoed in his mind. "Okoye." The voice was deep, resonating with the weight of centuries, and it filled his very being. Okoye's heart raced as he opened his eyes, the vision of the spirits swirling around him. He was no longer in the village. He was standing at the edge of a vast, endless plain, bathed in an eerie silver light. The sky above him was filled with swirling clouds, and in the distance he could see shadowy figures moving, their forms indistinct and formless. "Who speaks to me?" Okoye asked, his voice steady despite the overwhelming power of the presence. "I am the spirit of the land," the voice replied, its tone both comforting and ominous. "You have summoned us, Okoye, for the balance must be restored, but you must understand, there is a cost to every action, and you are not the only one who will suffer the consequences." Okoye's heart sank as the weight of the words settled over him. He had come seeking guidance, but it seemed that the ancestors had their own demands. "What must I do?" Okoye asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How can I stop the ancient spirits from destroying the village?" "The ancient ones must be appeased," the voice said. "They were wronged long ago, and their hunger for revenge cannot be sated by force alone. The land must be healed, and you, Okoye, must be the one to lead the way. But know this, what you seek to undo will come at a great price. The balance will be restored, but the cost will not be borne by you alone." Okoye's mind reeled. What did it mean? What price would be exacted from the village? And would the ancient spirits ever truly be satisfied? The voice of the ancestor lingered, in Okoye's mind, its warning echoing in his ears as he tried to make sense of its meaning. The price of restoring balance, the cost of appeasing the ancient spirits, was still unclear, but one thing was certain: whatever lay ahead, it would not be easy. There was no going back now. As the ritual continued, the world around Okoye seemed to shift, the shadows deepening and stretching out before him. He could feel the presence of the spirits, their restless energy swirling around him, pushing against his mind. He tried to remain steady, focusing on the task at hand, but the weight of their power was overwhelming. "Okoye," the voice of the ancestor spoke again, its tone now more urgent. "The time for action is upon you. You must choose how you will confront the Ancient Ones. If you delay, the curse will spread beyond the village and consume the land." Okoye clenched his fists, his heart racing as he searched for answers. He had been chosen for this task, but the road ahead was fraught with danger. The ancient spirits, the forgotten ones, what did they truly want? And what price would the village have to pay? The wind howled as the spirit's energy grew stronger, swirling around Okoye in a storm of raw power. He could see flashes of images before his eyes, visions of the ancient ones, their twisted forms, their rage and hunger. They were beings of immense power, creatures bound by ancient forces that had long been sealed away. But now they were free. "There is no time to waste," Okoye said, his voice rising above the storm. "Tell me what I must do to save my people." The ancestor's voice softened, its tone filled with both sorrow and resolve. "The cost is not a price that can be measured in gold or blood, Okoye. The cost is in the heart of the village, in the soul of the land. The balance requires a sacrifice." The words hung heavy in the air, the full meaning of them still beyond Okoye's grasp. But one thing was clear: the cost of saving the village would not come without great loss. The night was growing darker, the winds howling louder, and Okoye could feel the energy of the ritual reaching a fever pitch. His pulse raced, his body tense as he tried to grasp the enormity of the decision he was being forced to make. The voice of the ancestor was clear, but the meaning of the sacrifice it spoke of still hung like a veil, hidden in mystery. "There must be a way to avoid the sacrifice," Okoye said, his voice trembling with desperation. "Isn't there another way? Surely there must be something we can do." The ancestral voice was soft, almost mournful, as though it shared his pain. "The land is imbalanced, Okoye. The spirits you face are ancient, bound by forces beyond human comprehension. For the balance to be restored, something must be given, something that represents the life force of the village. A life must be lost so that the land may heal." Okoye's heart sank as he struggled to comprehend the weight of the words. A life, who would it be? His own? Or someone from the village? He couldn't bear the thought of losing anyone, not after everything they had been through. "No," he whispered, the word escaping his lips with the weight of despair. "I can't allow that. There must be another way." The winds howled louder, swirling around him with the intensity of a storm. The spirits seemed to be closing in, their energy suffocating him. The ancestral voice grew firmer, its tone leaving no room for doubt. "There is no other way, Okoye. The balance must be restored. It is the price that has always been demanded. You or another must make the sacrifice. It is the only way to save your village and the land from the curse that will destroy all." The realization struck Okoye like a bolt of lightning. The ancient spirits had been waiting, watching for the right moment to return, and now that moment had come. He had been chosen as the protector of the village, but the cost of that protection was not one he could escape. Tears filled Okoye's eyes as he thought of his family, his people, the children who played in the village, unaware of the danger looming on the horizon. How could he ask anyone else to make such a sacrifice? The ancestor's voice softened once more, almost as if offering comfort. The village is strong because of the sacrifices made in its name. It is the way of the world. Nothing is given without a price. You must decide, Okoye, choose who will carry the burden, or face the destruction of all that you hold dear. As the wind howled and the flames of the ceremonial fire danced wildly, Okoye closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had no choice. The village, the people, the land, everything he loved was at stake. And in this moment, he understood that the true meaning of leadership was not about power or glory, but about the willingness to make the hardest of choices. "I will make the sacrifice," Okoye said, his voice filled with resolve. "I will take on the burden to protect my people." The winds died down, and the energy of the ritual shifted. Okoye opened his eyes to see the spirits beginning to dissipate, their forms fading into the ether. The connection was slowly breaking, but the peace that followed left him with a sense of finality. He had made his choice. With his decision made, Okoye stepped back from the ritual circle, feeling the weight of his duty in every step. He had saved the village, but at what cost? The future would unfold, and only time would tell if the balance had truly been restored. The days following the ritual were heavy with silence. The village had gone through the motions of normal life, yet something was different. The air was thicker, the sky overcast with the knowledge that the village's fate had been sealed. Okoye felt it most acutely. The weight of the sacrifice he had chosen to make hung over him like a shadow, unshakable and ever-present. He spent the following days in quiet contemplation, walking the village perimeter, his mind consumed with the thoughts of the choice he had made. Would the spirits truly be satisfied? Would the curse truly be lifted? Or had he doomed the village in ways he could not yet understand? The elders had not spoken much since the ritual. They had gathered in their meeting place, their faces grim, their eyes filled with the weight of knowing what Okoye had chosen. Elder Amina had tried to offer him comfort, but there was little to say. The burden of leadership often demanded sacrifices, and Okoye had made his. "You have done what you could," she had said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that must be made alone, but remember, Okoye, the village is stronger because of you." Despite her words, Okoye couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. The village had been saved, for now, but the spirits of old were not so easily appeased. He had made the ultimate sacrifice, but was it enough? One evening, as he sat beneath the baobab tree, reflecting on everything that had transpired, he felt a presence beside him. He turned to find Nneka standing there, her form shimmering in the fading light. She was no longer bound by the constraints of the physical world, her spirit free, but her eyes held a sadness that Okoye had not seen before. "Okoye," she said softly, "you have done what you thought was best, but the road ahead is still fraught with danger." Okoye's heart skipped a beat as he looked at her. "Nneka, how?" "I am here to warn you," she replied. "The sacrifice you made, it may not be enough. The ancient spirits will not rest easily. They are not bound by the same rules as you and I." Okoye's stomach twisted with unease. "Then what must I do? What more can I give?" Nneka's gaze softened, but her words carried a finality that struck deep. "You must prepare for the next battle, Okoye. The war is not over." The moon hung high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the village, and Okoye felt its weight pressing down on him. The night was unsettlingly quiet, too quiet for his liking. The wind had died down, and even the chirping of the nocturnal creatures seemed to have paused. It was as if the land itself was holding its breath. Nneka's words echoed in his mind. The war is not over. She had warned him that the spirits would not be easily appeased. And now, as the night stretched on, Okoye found himself on edge, waiting for something, anything, to happen. The village had, for the moment, been spared from the curse's worst effects. The crops began to grow again, the air felt fresher, and the villagers resumed their routines, trying to carry on as though nothing had changed. But Okoye could sense the undercurrent of fear in their eyes. They knew, deep down, that they had only bought themselves time. As he walked through the village, his mind spinning with thoughts of the future, Okoye couldn't help but feel the weight of leadership bearing down on him. He had made a sacrifice, a decision that had cost him dearly, but had it been enough to keep the ancient spirits at bay? Or was there something more sinister at play, something that even the ancestors could not predict? He arrived at the edge of the village, the place where the dense jungle began to take over, its dark tendrils creeping closer each day. It was here that the ancient spirits had first been sealed away, long before Okoye's time. The land felt different now, charged with an energy that sent shivers down his spine. Suddenly he felt it, an unsettling presence, something dark and formless moving within the shadows. His heart skipped a beat as his senses heightened. The spirits had returned, but not in the way he had expected. They were not the same spirits he had encountered in the ritual, but something far darker, more dangerous. Okoye's instincts kicked in, and he quickly reached for his knife, the only weapon he had left. He had no idea what he was up against, but he was ready to face it. The air grew thick, and the temperature dropped. The darkness around him deepened, as though the very night was closing in. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. It was tall, its form obscured by the darkness, but Okoye could make out the faint glow of eyes staring at him. It was a creature of the night, its presence more terrifying than anything he had ever imagined. "Who are you?" Okoye demanded, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. The creature tilted its head, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. It spoke in a voice that seemed to reverberate through Okoye's very bones. "I am the harbinger of what is to come, Okoye. The balance has been broken, and you are responsible for it." Okoye's grip tightened on his knife, but the creature's words struck a deep fear in his heart. What did it mean? Had he truly broken the balance, despite all he had done? You are one of the ancient spirits?" Okoye asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The creature's laughter echoed in the air, a sound that sent a chill down Okoye's spine. "I am not a spirit, I am a messenger, a servant of the true darkness, and you have set it free." Okoye took a step back, his mind racing. The creature's words didn't make sense. He had done everything the ancestors had asked of him. He had made the sacrifice, and the curse had been lifted, at least he thought it had been. But now it seemed that the darkness was far more complex than he could have imagined. "You cannot stop it," the creature hissed. "You cannot undo what you have done." Okoye felt his blood run cold as the creature's words sank in. The true darkness? The creature's presence felt like an ancient evil, something that had been waiting, watching, and now it was unleashed. The wind began to howl again, picking up speed and swirling around Okoye and the dark figure. The creature's eyes gleamed with a twisted kind of satisfaction, as though it knew something that Okoye did not. A sense of dread filled the air, and Okoye's heart hammered in his chest. "You speak of a darkness that I cannot control," Okoye said, struggling to remain calm. "But I did what I had to do to protect my people. If there's a price to pay, then so be it." The creature's eyes narrowed, and it stepped closer, its movements unsettlingly smooth. "You were not meant to be the one who made the sacrifice," it said, its voice dripping with malice. "The village was never meant to survive. The curse is part of the land's natural order. You have upset the balance, and now you must face the consequences." Okoye's breath quickened. Was everything he had done in vain? Had he misunderstood the ritual's true meaning? The choice he had made seemed to have made things worse, not better. "The village is stronger than you think," Okoye replied, though doubt gnawed at his mind. "We fought back darkness before, and we will do so again." The creature laughed bitterly. "You are a fool, Okoye. The darkness that you face is beyond your understanding. The price you paid will not restore the balance. It will only lead to its destruction." Okoye felt a surge of rage and determination. This creature, this harbinger of doom, could not defeat him so easily. He had already faced death. He had already chosen to make the ultimate sacrifice. He would not back down now. The creature's voice dropped to a whisper, full of venom. "You may have the will to fight, but the question is, will you survive the price?" Okoye's grip on his knife tightened. This was no longer about defeating one dark force. This was about confronting the true nature of the curse, the unending battle between light and shadow. He had no choice but to face it head-on, no matter what the cost. The dark figure loomed before Okoye, its presence overwhelming, suffocating. The air around them felt charged, and the whispers of the village, the very land itself, seemed to be closing in. The creature's voice echoed in Okoye's mind, reverberating with the weight of centuries of darkness. "You cannot fight what you do not understand," the creature hissed. "The curse was not meant to be broken, and now the land itself will rise against you." Okoye's grip tightened on his knife, his pulse racing. This was no longer just a battle for the village, it was a fight for the very soul of the land. The darkness that the creature spoke of was ancient, far older than Okoye could comprehend, and it had been bound by the sacrifice of those who had come before him. "I don't need to understand it," Okoye said through clenched teeth. "I only need to fight it, and I will fight until my last breath." With a sudden movement, the creature lunged at him, its long, shadowy tendrils reaching out like the fingers of death. Okoye jumped back, narrowly avoiding the creature's grasp. The darkness seemed to surge toward him, relentless, but Okoye's resolve held strong.